Armstrong, Castrol, Fram, and PPG proudly presents highlights of the Queen Motor Spares Tarka 400. The Queen Motor Spares Tarka 400 got underway with an expo in Queenstown on the Thursday before the event. The arrival of the new Ford Ranger sparked considerable interest from the public, who were able to see their favorite off-road vehicles at close quarters and rub shoulders with competitors. The state-of-the-art SPM-built Mareka Ford Ranger was undoubtedly the star of the show. The event proper was based in the border town of Tarka, which is situated midway between Queenstown and Cradock. No one could have predicted that the sunny, partially cloudy weather would turn decidedly nasty by mid-morning. A cold front had started moving in from the coast with gale force winds, rain and even snow forecast for the weekend. As the conditions worsened, crews set about preparing for a muddy race while others took shelter. Multiple champion Alfie Cox leads the Open Motorcycle Championship on his Natro Freight Castrol KTM and has had 1 overall win and 3 second place finishes this season. Shimwell's Yamaha rider Clayton Enslin has been the man to beat all season and has 3 overall wins under his belt and a comfortable lead in the 250 class. Andrew Ogden leads the 200 class and KTM dominates the top 3 positions. In the 250 class, Clayton Enslin has a 31-point lead, while Alfie Cox reigns supreme in the open class. Franz Chebek Sr. and Jr. have notched up a record 5 consecutive victories in the special vehicle category at the wheel of the immaculately prepared Porsche-powered V-Motors Chenoweth. The battle for second has John Weir Smith in the O'Hagan's Kopanong Hotel Jimco chasing down reigning Class B champion Hill Nell.
We got Chepik in the lead at the moment. The fight is going to be for the second place overall in the special vehicles. Right now, Hill Nell's running second, we're running third. So I think that's where the fight's going to come in. There are still some other contenders who we're going to have to fight against and keep them off. And I think this, with us not finishing the last race, it's going to be difficult for us. We need to get a good result in this race.
It's all over bar the shouting as far as the Chebeks are concerned. Hill Nell is handily placed in the look truggy, with Weir Smith and co-driver Jeff Minnett the danger man. Bombardier have taken the quad scene by storm and their riders have dominated the top placings all season. Cornel de Villiers has 3 victories under his belt, but teammate Jacques Strubich is always a major threat. Bombardier riders occupy the top 5 positions in the quad championship. Cornel de Villiers is the man to beat and has 28 points in hand over Jacques Strubich. Schumi van Vieren has a slender lead in the production vehicle championship. He briefly lost the lead to Mitsubishi's Butts Carolyn after the Toyota 1000.
There's 3 races left. We're going to have the 8th race this year, which in the beginning of the year looked like we were not going to have. So only 7 out of the 8 races are going to count. So you can throw away your bad race for the year, which would maybe change the situation towards the end of the year slightly, but not all that much. So yeah, well, just got to give it our best shot and see how we end up.
Carolyn and co-driver Henny Terstega have regularly finished on the podium in the ex-Dagger Mitsubishi Pajero, but overall victory has so far eluded them. Van Vieren leads the production vehicle championship in the Class D Land Cruiser, but cannot afford to relax with Carolyn waiting to pounce. The debut of the French-built Mareka Ford Ranger was shrouded in controversy, with rival teams questioning the vehicle's eligibility in respect of local Class T regulations. It was agreed that the Ford could run in Class T, subject to its eligibility being confirmed after the event.
I think there's a lot of excitement, also a lot of reservations, a lot of nervousness. I think all those things that go with being in a car for the first time. It's a huge, big project. It's the first for a Ford Motor Company worldwide. I believe it's one of the best cars in the world, one of the highest technology, certainly in South Africa. So there's a lot of pressure on us, and so yeah, feeling a little bit nervous, but really looking forward to it. Very exciting. The car is it's an original car which we sent over from Ford Motor Company to France, to a company called SPM, who manufacture racing cars in France. The car is based on the Ford Ranger double cab. The cab and everything is still all intact. The firewall, the fenders, inside of the fenders are all intact. It runs the Cobra V8 Ford Mustang motor. It's a 4.6 litre aluminium block fuel injected engine, quad cam motor. The gearbox, it's a 6-speed sequential gearbox which is manufactured in France. The diffs, we run X-Track diffs made by X-Track in England. The suspension is an SBM designed suspension with a solid rear axle and an independent front suspension. The shock absorbers are manufactured by a company called Donnery in France, and we're really looking forward to it.
Nissan has dominated the season with 3 wins out of 5 events.
Well, London, the team has moved our spare wheels backwards for the weight distribution to be more on the back wheels and for better jumping. So we've tested and it felt very good. So I think this race is going to be good for us.
Much had been done to improve the performance and reliability of former champions Avi Reiniger and Robin Houghton's Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser.
We've done a few things. We've moved the spare wheels back towards behind the rear axle of the vehicle to get a better weight transfer onto the back axle. We've done a few things on the diffs. We've done some work on the suspension, especially on the back suspension. We've got more bump travel at the back. We replaced the troublesome gearbox that we had in the desert race with the standard Land Cruiser gearbox for the time being, while we're doing final development work on the sequential gearbox. And that's about it, yes. Fine-tuning and trying to get it better.
The poor weather conditions did not help matters as crews went about preparing themselves and their vehicles for the time trial. A good starting position is critical in off-road racing, and as a result, the time trial is taken seriously by everyone. To make matters worse, the heavens opened up minutes before the start of the time trial. There was no letting up as far as the weather was concerned, and competitors would be forced to contend with wet and extremely tricky conditions in the time trial. Reigning production vehicle champions Neil Woolridge and Kenny Skolthammer got their campaign in the new vehicle off to a good start. They set the joint fastest time in the time trial that presented a varied terrain for the drivers. The 3 remaining events in the championship would be used to shake down the Moreka Ford Ranger for its debut in Dakar 2002. Setting joint fastest time with Woolridge were father and son duo Gary and Bodo Berthold in the locally designed and built Nissan V6-powered M&E Glass-sponsored Dirtco. 2-time winners Geniel de Villiers and Francois Jordan were 3rd fastest in the Nissan Hardbody, 31 seconds behind Woolridge and the Bertholds. Reigning special vehicle co-drivers champion Bucks Carolyn and co-driver Henny Testiga had a good run and posted the 4th quickest time in the Mitsubishi Pajero, another vehicle built by SBM. Mark and Peter Brekel are former quad riders who have moved up into the special vehicle ranks. They acquitted themselves well in the time trial and would start 5th on the Saturday morning. Queenstown businessman and sponsor of the event, Greg Harvey and co-driver Boy Stone in the Queen Motorspares Jimco had a steady run in the tricky conditions. They would start 6 seconds behind the Brekel brothers. Botswana businessman Atang Makakhaneni and new co-driver Mike Stangl qualified 7th in the Hellman's Logistics Jimco, but a broken side shaft a mere 2.5 kilometers into Saturday's main event forced them to retire from the race. Franz Chepik Sr. shared the cockpit of the V-Motors Chenoweth with Stephen Parker. A back injury forced Chepik Jr., who has already clinched the co-drivers championship, to sit this one out. Mark Ferguson and Blackie Swart are relative newcomers to the sport, and their 9th place in the Drinks Galore Chenoweth was a noteworthy performance. Northwest Province farmer Avi Reiniger and Robin Houghton had a clean run in the much-improved Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser and would start 10th. Mark Corbett and Juan Moore have been the winners of Class D in the past 2 events and were leading Class D qualifiers in the Petronas Cintium Isuzu. Bez and Dion Besedno took charge in Class B and were 4.5 minutes faster than Phil Nell in the Look Africa Truggy. On board with Hannes Wobler and Richard Leake as they chased the Ailing Vacation Vans Jeep of Stratford Firth and Scott Abraham that was now running in 2-wheel drive. Two punctures in the time trial cost the Nissan pair valuable time, and frustratingly, a recurring gearbox problem would see them drop out within the first 2 kilometers of Saturday's main event. Andrew and Chris Birkin have finally been awarded the 2000 Class E Championship title. They celebrated by posting the fastest time in their Castrol Toyota Hilux in the hotly contested 4-cylinder class. Surprisingly, special vehicles occupied 6 of the top 10 placings in the time trial, with Woolridge and Skuldhammer and Gary and Bodo Berthold joined fastest. Stay with us for more action from the Queen Motorspares Tarka 400. This bird. Biting cold, rain and sleet greeted competitors as they prepared for the 7 o'clock start. Ahead of them lay 400 kilometers of tough racing in the most extreme conditions. Off-road racing certainly isn't for sissies.
We managed to put on pole together with a Ford, so it should be an interesting race, but I think it's going to favour the 4x4s with this sort of rain and mud. It's cold conditions, we don't have a windscreen, they've got a windscreen, they do have an advantage. I think we're probably going to let the Ford go, let them make the track. We'll just follow behind and see how it goes from there.
Not the ideal place I want to start. I normally like to come from behind, but maybe in the conditions today with it being so wet and muddy, maybe it's not a bad thing to start first.
Since when did off-road racing become a drag race? Anyway, Woolridge and Skuldhammer, with the advantage of 4-wheel drive, got the whole shot on the Bertholds and bowed away. De Villiers and Jordan were next away and intent on closing the 31-second gap that the Mareka Ford Bear had on them. The former multiple touring car champion has taken to the dirt like a duck to water, and pundits are positioning him as the heir apparent to Cyril van der Merwe. It's a case of watch the space. Carolyn and Testega had the advantage over the gaggle of special vehicles starting behind them, in that they had the benefit of 4-wheel drive and a windscreen. What follows now is a sequence of onboard action from the De Villiers Nissan and the Woolridge Ford. First, De Villiers passed the Bertholds and then sets off in pursuit of the leader. The conditions were far from ideal, but the Mareka Ford Ranger handled the jumps without a problem. De Villiers now had the bit firmly between his teeth and rapidly closed on the Ford. This shortcut gave the Nissan Star the lead, and one wonders what Woolridge felt about this cheeky move. Then De Villiers threw away his lead by getting it all wrong. An untimely encounter with a gatepost cost him the lead, and extricating the Nissan from the fencing and stalling the V6 motor cost him valuable time. "40 minutes into the Queen Motorspares Tarka 400, Woolridge and Skuldhammer in the Mareka Ford Ranger had a slender lead over De Villiers and Jordan in the Nissan Hardbody. Interestingly, some sections of the route were bone dry and dusty, while others like this section were wet and extremely slippery. This power play between the rival teams was a clear indication that the Ford was not necessarily superior to the Nissan. While the Ford and the Nissan were locked in battle, the Bertholds in the M&E Glass Dirt Co had a firm grip on the special vehicle category lead and were just waiting for the leading pair to put a wheel wrong. Queenstown-based Greg Harvey and Boy Stone were having a good run in the Lexus V8-powered Queen Motorspares Jimco, but were being hauled in by production vehicle championship contenders Bucks Carolyn and Henny Testega in the Mitsubishi Pajero. Chebek Sr. and Stephen Parker, a former off-road racing driver now occupying the co-driver's seat for the first time, had gained 2 places in the V-Motors Chenoweth. But they had John Weir-Smith and Jeff Minnett in the O'Hagan's Kopanong Hotel Jimco hot on their heels. Weir-Smith couldn't relax for 1 second because the Breckel brothers in the Brasco Refrigeration Raceco were closing in on the Porsche-powered Jimco. Terrence Marsh made his special vehicle debut earlier this season and was running in the top 10 in the CommuterNet Raceco. The early Class D leaders were the Northwest Province farmers Pitt Hasbrook and Christo Bosch in the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser. There was a battle raging for the Class B lead. Fricky Brutta in the WPP Wingfoot had moved ahead of the Besaidenotes, who were in hot pursuit with reigning Class B champion Hill Nell nowhere to be seen. Reigning Class D champions Hein Grobler and Gerard Prinsloo were second in Class D in the Nissan Hardbody, but had Steve Beiheld and Jean-Pierre Joubert in the ex-Woolwich M1 4x4 Pajero right on their tail. Back to the leaders, and you're on board with de Villiers and Jordan in the Nissan as they close in and overtake the Mareka Ford Ranger. Quite clearly, the Nissan has the edge when it came to top speed, but the Ford came out on top in the Torque Stakes. Some trendy youngsters awaited the arrival of the rest of the field. First to arrive, and in third place, were Carolyn and Testiga in the Pajero, with Carolyn complaining afterwards that he only saw two competitors throughout the race. The Bertolds retired their Dirtco, and the new special vehicle category leaders were Chepek Senior and Tarka in the V-Motors Chenoweth. Competent driving and immaculate preparation has proved to be a winning combination. Greg Harvey was intent on ridding himself of his bridesmaid's mantle and was determined to beat Franz Chepek Senior, his arch-rival for many years. John Weir-Smith acquired Shamir Wariawa's 2000 championship-winning Jimco, but the vehicle has been plagued by mechanical problems in recent events. Soon after this point, he retired when a conrod punched a hole in the block of the Porsche engine. Andrew and Chris Perkin had a firm grip on the Class E lead, but they were being chased hard by veteran rally and off-road driver Kasi Kutsia and Aki Fari in the much-improved Castrol Toyota Condor that made its debut at the start of the season. Manfred Schroeder and Jack Peckham in the diesel-powered Class E Mareka Ford Ranger were well placed in third position and within striking distance of Birkin and Kutsia. Predictably, Mr. Consistency, Gil Nel, had taken the Class B lead in the Look Africa Truggy. The wily Gauteng-based veteran had systematically overtaken his rivals like Bez and Dion Besaidnout and would go on to win the class. KTM Works rider Elmer Simons had set the fastest time in Friday's time trial and was leading midway through the first loop. Graham McLaughlin on the open class Miller Moore Racing KTM started 11 seconds behind Simons and at this point was lying a comfortable second. Winner of 3 races this season, Clayton Enslin was third on the 250 Shimwell's Yamaha and closing in on the 2 riders ahead of him. 38-year-old multiple champion and Dakar star Alfie Cox had moved up from 8th to 4th on the 500 Natro Freight Castrol KTM. KwaZulu-Natal rider Barry Krill had taken the Works KTM up to 5th place and was leading the competitive 200 class. A bit of a moment here for Darrell Curtis. The Gauteng-based rider switched from KTM to Gas this season and would eventually finish 8th. The ever-spectacular Jacques Struvik held a slender lead in the quad class. The Bombardier rider had yet to win a race this season. His teammate and championship leader Cornel de Villiers had so far won 3 out of 4 races and was intent on picking up another win in the Tarka 400. Third place was held by another Bombardier rider, Sean Günther, who would eventually retire from the race. The designated service point was located at the Tarka Stud Showgrounds, and as always there was a hive of activity as technicians made hasty repairs and crews took a well-earned break after 200 kilometers of driving. Ahead of them lay another lap of 200 kilometers. Stay with us for more action from the Queen Motor Spares. To no one's surprise, the Mareka Ford Ranger of Woolwich and Skuldhammer was still in the lead. A brief stop at the service point to allow technicians to check key components didn't cost them too much time. Neil de Villiers and Francois Jordan had picked up 2 punctures on the Nissan Hardbody and were on a charge to try and make up some time on the Ford. Franz Chepek and Stephen Parker had matters well under control in the special vehicle category. So far, the V-Motors Chenoweth had not missed a beat. Marius Bursma and Chris Pretorius were still on their first loop in the ex-Cliff Barger Land Rover V8, and their dust created a visibility problem for 4th place Bucks Carolyn, another driver who had experienced 2 punctures. Rookie special vehicle driver Terence Marsh and Trevor Ahir were 5th overall in the Commuternet Raceco, a position they would hold until the finish. Mark Corbett and Juan Moore had moved into the Class D lead in the Petronas Sinjamai Isuzu, and a third consecutive class win appeared likely. 7th place privateers Cliff Whitehead and Johan Smallberger were having their best run of the season in the Lexus V8-powered N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser.
Tell us what the problem is. I've got a terrible cramping of my muscle in my left shoulder. I stopped for a quick injection. Now I'm getting back in the car and hopefully going to ride further.
Co-driver Boy Stone had a rare opportunity to drive the Lexus V8-powered Queen Motorspares Jimco, but now it was again Harvey's turn at the wheel. Fortunately, Harvey's chest cramps subsided, and they went on to finish 3rd in the special vehicle category and 8th overall. Two punctures and a broken steering pump belt cost Arpie Reiniger and Robin Houghton a lot of time. Changes to the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser had been successful, and the pair eventually finished 10th overall and 7th in the production vehicle category. Other than panel damage from an encounter with a fence, the race leaders Neil Woolridge and Kenny Skolthammer had not had any problems with the Mareka Ford Ranger. The finish of the Queen Motorspares Tarka 400 and a dream debut for the French-built vehicle, and another 35 points for Woolridge and Skolthammer. A post-race technical inspection by MSA officials found the Ford to be eligible, and the results stand.
We had a good dice with the Nissan, and I think now that we're coming to a gunfight with a gun, it's proved that it's very competitive. Kenil and I were passing each other all morning, and then I think he had a puncher, and I think he's about a puncher in time behind us, so it proves that we've got two very competitive cars, and it's going to be great for racing in South Africa.
De Villiers and Jordan finished 2nd overall, 4 minutes and 33 seconds behind the Ford, having lost over 6 minutes due to punctures.
For us, I enjoyed the event quite a lot. In the beginning, the Ford and I had a nice dice. I mean, we passed each other a couple of times on the route, and then when we got stuck behind him, we were right behind him, and we got a puncture, so he got the 3-minute lead on us, and then after the pits we got another puncture, so he had a clean run, we had 2 punctures, but it was a good race for us.
3rd overall and a record 6th special vehicle category win went to Franz Jepek Sr. and Stephen Parker in the V-Motors Chenoweth. Clearly the opposition have no answer for Jepek, who has been racing off-road cars and motorcycles since 1970.
Makes it now 6 in a row, which is our record. Last race made it 5 in a row, which was the record then. This is a new record again, and like somebody else to beat that one.
It would be a 3rd consecutive Class D victory for the Petronas Sinjamai Isuzu of Mark Corbett and Juan Moore.
The race was very rough. In the morning, about 5 k's from the start, we had our first puncture, so we got quite concerned. Then we dropped back about 15 places. And then from there we had to push quite hard. But the big problem with the bucky is every time you see one of these big bumps, you just see air and then you just see ground. It's extremely rough.
The Class E win went to Manfred Schroeder and Jack Neckham in the diesel-powered Mareka Ford Ranger. Kasi Gutsia and Aki Fari finished just over a minute behind in the Castrol Toyota Condor.
Today we had a good run. First lap we paced ourselves to Kasi. The Birkins are quite a bit quicker than us. And I said to Jack that second lap we'll go for it and then try and pass Kasi, which we did. And we just managed to stay ahead of him to finish.
The Class B win went to Hill Nell in the Look Africa Truggy, the only finisher in the class.
We here, it was tough, it was nice, it was cold. But no windscreen, it doesn't really help. Otherwise it was fun and a very nice race.
2 class wins for the Mareka Ford team and a welcome return to form for Cliff Weichelt and Arpie Reiniger. The Zermatten brothers put in another consistent run to finish in the top 10. On the special vehicle front, only 6 of the original starters made it to the finish line. A podium finish for rookies Marsh and Ahir, and a sterling effort from 4th place finishers Ferguson and Swart. 38-year-old Alfie Cox proved the critics wrong by coming from behind to win the event overall.
Had a very bad time trial, 8th on the road, 2 minutes behind the leaders. But I knew because of the rain yesterday it's going to be one hell of a race. And we've been neck and neck the whole way, and I managed to pull away from the last refuel home, the last 60, 70 k's. But I'm happy to win again. We had 3 seconds and a win, and to come back and do another win, I'm very happy.
Age and gunning triumphed in the end. Clayton Enslin finished 2nd, almost 2 minutes behind Cox. KTM dominated proceedings with 7 finishes in the top 10. Cornel de Villiers picked up his 4th overall win of the season on his Bombardier. His was the class act in a quality quad field that was totally dominated by Bombardiers.
It's a very strong bike. It is virtually unbreakable. The motor is strong, the frame is strong. It's indestructible.
De Villiers finished 18 minutes ahead of Gas rider Brandon Martin and just short of 24 minutes ahead of third place Bombardier teammate Jacques Struve.